Welcome back. Bram Weinstein Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. Let's have a springtime Friday visit with John Keim of ESPN and the John Keim Report off of the second week of OTA practices. Hey, John, how are you?
Good, Bram. How are you?
All right, let's just get this out of the way. How did Jaden look to you? Because that's what everybody wants to know.
Let's start with, there's a lot more to learn, right? But I would say this. The early returns for him have been very good, but it's not so much what you see as much as what you hear.
Yeah.
And I say that because what you hear are the things that make quarterbacks successful in this league. And that's what he's doing, the work that he puts in. And, we were at the post-conference or post-practice presser with John Allen, who talked about how he gets there early and he never beats Jaden in there. And I asked John after his presser, what time do you get there? He said 6:45, and he's always there. So, those are the things that, to me, resonate the most. You can sometimes be not fooled by what you see in practice, but you don't always know how to process that. But you can, I know what I've heard other quarterbacks who are successful, what they do, and that's what he's doing. You hear these stories from LSU about what he's done, what he did there to improve. Those are the things that, to me, are by far the most encouraging, because when you then pair it with the skills that we see, that's when you have good success. And, we see the footwork, you see the compact delivery, you see the arm talent, which is, I always tell people arm talent is separate than arm strength. And, arm talent is meaningful to coaches. That's what they talk about. Analysts or fans sometimes might talk about arm strength. Coaches talk about arm talent. And that's where, and you and I were talking about this during the practice the other day about, when he sees a guy, he'll go through his progression. He sees a guy open. He's not hesitating. He's going. He's not waiting for that guy to get more open. He's going now. And the compact delivery coupled with that mindset is what leads to people saying arm talent. And he has that. So, again, on the field, who knows how long it'll take, but the other stuff away from the field, to me, is what I would be most encouraged by. I
mean, all I can get at this point are glimpses. They haven't had a full practice. They're in T-shirts and shorts. There's no pass rush. Nobody's going to get hit. But I will say those glimpses, like what you're alluding to, and I agree with you, it's more about what I'm hearing about him than what I see, because the pass to Dotson the other day in practice, it's pretty and all to look at. It's not realistic. There's no pass rush. So there's only so many glimpses I can get, but the glimpses are good. I mean, he makes decisions very fast in these 7-on-7 drills, which is the thing that I'm looking for. And this is not to knock Mariota, but a week ago it was noticeable that he wasn't making decisions really quickly. And here's a guy who's been in the league for almost a decade. This guy walks in the door and has the early takeaway feels like he's ahead of the curve learning the offense because he's making decisions very quickly. And it's just a good sign to me. That's all.
Excuse me. I'm with you there. And I think that a lot of that stems from the other stuff that that I was talking about, which is the extra work you put in. And you have to, at LSU, he used that virtual reality technology, which is great. Not going to have the same effect on everybody. Now, it depends on who you talk to how severe the effect was. He felt it was pretty high. Others did too, but some other coaches this is just I was talking to a coach from there yesterday. It's this is just that was all the result of that, plus all this other work he had been doing over time. So it wasn't just he's doing it. Oh, he started doing this. Now you're better. It's you're doing all this extra work. You're coming in at 5 or 6 a.m. all the time, watching film with your teammates on your own, and then you get this. And then it takes off. So it's it was another step in the process for them. But the point is, all of it came from the work behind the scenes that we're not going to see. And that, like I said, and so that leads to exactly what you're saying. And, there are times where the one thing that you notice too is there was a practice we were talking about this the other day, but there was a practice a couple years ago in December. And it was, Carson and Taylor Heineke and God, I forget who else. Maybe I don't remember which it was. Where was that?
Hal.
Mostly those two.
Hal.
Yeah. Well, oh yeah, but Sam wasn't having a lot of throws,
Right.
But like the other two, like the ball was hitting the ground a lot, even on air, and you're like, oh my God, this is really bad.
Yeah.
You don't see that here. Now, I would also credit Mariota for that too, as far as like, okay, the ball's not hitting the ground a lot, but for Daniels, you don't see that, and I think that's but he's accurate. Like a lot of the stuff that we're seeing now is exactly what you saw on film during this during the process, right? Going back and rewatching his games, on the coach's tape or whatever. This is what you saw from him. But again, I go back to the other stuff because, quarterbacks who succeed or fail, it's oftentimes, not always, but it's oftentimes based on the work that you're doing or not doing behind the scenes, especially when you have the talent that he has. Some guys can do all that work and they max out and maybe they're a third string quarterback, but they may go on to be a really good coach because they have that in them. But you combine a guy with the talent he has with the extra work that absolutely sounds like he's doing. And then it's like, okay, maybe you really got something here.
Yeah. The other thing that stood out to me was Terry McLaurin was like locked in like it was September. I mean, it was just his energy was, he made a couple of plays and then other people made plays. I mean, he was acting like there was a game around the corner, the way he was just kind of reacting and barking on the sideline, which I thought was really great. And then the other one was, I'm dying to see Jahan Dotson back in a different offense again, because I think they misutilized him so badly last year. I remember at the end of the season, I was saying things like, how do we unlock you again? And he said, let me be a route runner. And Bieniemy didn't. And the reality, like, again, this is just glimpses, but that shot that you saw of Jaden Daniels hitting him in stride in the back of the end zone, this is his strength. And it's just a glimpse. Is Dotson going to become the weapon he was as a rookie? And the glimpses show they're thinking about him that way again.
I think, even last year, like, I think that kid can be a good receiver, very good. We talked about this last year going into the season. We all thought, this kid could be really, really good. And I haven't given up on that because I just think last year was very tough in a lot of ways. And I'd like to talk more to him or to some others about, like, when you say, let me be a route runner, what exactly do you mean? And sometimes it's the way you want to route, the way an offense run, right? Or maybe sometimes here it's like it's just a speed cut versus you being able to set a guy up and shimmy and go, and which is what he's able to do a couple times before. So was there less of that? Were the style of routes that you're being asked to run not conducive to your game as much as others might think? So we'll see. But I think the other thing on that play that we're talking about yesterday or earlier this week, because you're right, like Terry was pretty pumped up. And, there have been definitely times in the past in those 7-on-7 OTA work where guys get fired up. Like, you've seen it with other players before. But this was the reason why, like for McLaurin on that play, that he was so pumped up. Like, sometimes you can make a big play and you can be pumped because you made a big play. He was pumped because of what he saw from Jahan. That was what, to me, stood out. And it speaks to the passion that McLaurin has, too. But on that play, he's talking about using his hands, but it was talking about if you're using your hands like that's the line, they're not going to stop you. And that's what excited him most. And that's one of the things for Dotson has always been the challenge is getting off the line to get to the point where your route running can then take over, because he is a really good route runner, especially at the top of routes. If he does that, then it's going to be a fun year for him. But I still think he can play. I know he had some drops last year, but like he has, like the catch he made the other day is the kind of catch he would make routinely in college, which is that a little bit, not quite a circus catch, a difficult catch, outstretched, etc. Where he sometimes has trouble is like, turning your head upfield before you run, right? That's trying to get some yards at the catch on a ball right to you, whatever. But yeah, I think that play, is that significant? Because it's only mid-May to late May. We'll see. But I think if what McLaurin saw with him at the line holds true, then I think you're going to see a bigger part of him being a bigger part of the passing attack.
All right, other side of the ball. You mentioned John Allen. He actually looked really good in good shape. And he seemed really happy. This is obviously very different than what the things he was saying late in the season, which you and I both know was kind of water under the bridge very early in this process. But, people still have questions. And he was saying literally all the right things the other day. And then one of the other things that was coming up from a lot of the reporters this week, so a lot of people are writing about this, is leadership. Where's it coming from? Is it the coach? Is it the front office? Is it the players? Who of these players, since the roster's very new, are going to emerge as the leaders? I think they're all relevant questions here. Where do you think John fits in that way? He's been a captain. He's been a leader. Not sure he handled that very well last year. Where does he fit in a very new roster here in that role for them?
Well, certainly behind some guys like a Bobby Wagner. I mean, everybody's going to be falling in line behind Bobby Wagner. And I think for a guy like Allen, it's more be the leader in your group. You need leaders in each group, and it doesn't have to be a Bobby Wagner in every group. Because you know why? Because those guys are hard to find. So you need guys who are the way you be a leader. And it's why they brought in Zach Ertz and Austin Eckler, guys who, and it's not, again, leadership. And I don't know if people always understand for what players term leadership. It's not just grabbing a guy by the face mask and saying, you got to do this and that. It's what kind of tone do you set in the room? Are you taking care of your responsibilities? Are you holding yourself accountable? Are you doing the work necessary to succeed? What are you doing that others can learn from? That's where guys like Eckler and Ertz come in, because they've done things to get to this point and they've had success, and people can watch what they do and take it from there. Wagner is an exception. Again, you put him at the top of the food chain with this. But for a guy like Allen, be a leader in your room, and just, take care of things in there. And that's what he has to be. So I think I agree with you. I think he kind of fell down on that last year. Bad year for a lot of people because it just wasn't. And I know for him, it was a lot about this is not going where you thought it would. And he was as excited as anybody going into the year, just because he finally, I remember being at the pep rally for Josh Harris at FedEx, and he's like, John was like, I've been waiting 7 years for a scene like this. And I think then when you get to the point you realize maybe it's not going to happen, then there's a lot of frustration that comes with it. But, I think, I would still say for him, be a leader in your room. And if you have the leaders in the secondary, I think you have some potential guys there who can do that. And, I think each room needs that guy, and John needs to be that guy in the defensive line room.
All right, since you mentioned the secondary, I want to talk about corner for a minute. We can parse out where we think weaknesses are on this roster, and there are a few prominent spots. But I think we know, in general, if you looked at the roster, who likely the starters would be at almost every position, except corner. I not that I'm trying to glean anything from these practices that I've seen, but I think that's a wide open competition for literally who's going to start, let alone be the backup. So I don't know where you are on that position right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to learn, and a lot of it, I think Mike Samuelsville, the rookie, probably is the one guy I'd say, I think that guy's going to be on the field, right, as a slot corner. On the outside, the hard part is, they don't have a true number one guy for sure. Nobody, not going into the season, you don't have that. And so can Benjamin St. Juste develop into a solid, get back to the progress where I think he was making before last year, where you felt like he was becoming a solid corner? Can Emmanuel Forbes live up to being a first round draft pick and become a quality starter? I think there's more to learn. And how much of it was their own play versus what they were taught, what they were being asked to do last year. So I think those are things we don't know, but it leads to the questions. They signed Mike Davis, who is a bigger corner, and in this defense, they like bigger corners. So where does he fit in? He kind of was up and down with the Chargers, but he does, they know him and they know he fits. I think the other thing is it sounds like the Cowboys, when Witt and Quinn were there, liked Forbes enough to, at least they liked him, right? At least that's what it sounds like. So it's not like, because sometimes you come to a new place, like they didn't like this guy, and now you're coaching him, and now whatever. But the fact that he can take the ball away is a very good sign for them. So can you help him improve in other aspects of his game enough to get him there? But you're right, like there are a lot of questions, I think, at that spot. And it's at some key spots, that's one of them, there remain those questions. And that's why, like, I think we can all sit here and say, like, I like the direction of this program and the franchise. When will it get there? And it may not, will it happen this year right away? We don't know enough to say that. But do I think it looks good for the next 5 years? I do.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was no chance they were going to flip the roster around and get every box checked, but
No.
I think they've done a lot. And so we'll see. But I mean, there are prominent holes here, and corner's an interesting one. And What is also very interesting about it is there are prominent number one corners on the market still. Xavier Howard is available. Stephon Gilmore is available. Even if it's just for a year, they're available. So I think post June 1, once all the other whatever cap cups come around, I think tackle and potentially corner are still ads for this team this summer.
Well, I think, and I will say this, one thing to keep in mind, like the post June 1 cuts aren't as prominent as they used to be, because you can designate them that way before. So I don't know how many guys are going to come automatically available. But yes, that's something you have to consider. And there are, like, even at tackle, weeks ago, I went through a lot of the teams that drafted tackles and the likelihood of them releasing a guy that might be of interest here. And there aren't a lot of guys, but there are some that you're like, okay, pay attention to this. So there might be, maybe there's something, because it's also like it's post June 1, like you said, because that obviously then you can shove the money a different way to the cap or in the future and all that. You can split it up and it lessens the cap hit for this year. But it's also getting through, like, the other part of that equation, Bram, is, the Washington has gone through some of their OTA stuff earlier than others. This will give teams next week another chance to see, okay, what does this rookie look like? What does this guy look like? And then make a decision, which could then, as you said, free somebody up to be available for them. Just like Charles Leno a couple of years ago was, could that guy be? And we don't, like, does it happen a lot? Not at the position you need, right? They're relying, it's not just getting any guy, it's getting a left tackle, and not just a left tackle, but a guy who could start for them as a quality starter, for 17 games. Hard to find, but but it has happened. So that would be a way. And then with corner, you're right, like Howard was coming off injuries in Miami. It wasn't his best year, in part because of that. But he does play a lot, like he's better in a man coverage scheme. So the one question I don't know for those guys is, like, what opportunities have they had that maybe they haven't pursued, because maybe you want to see, does a contending team start to, when you're getting old in your career, if you don't have part of what lured, like, guys like Bobby Wagner here later in his career, clearly, but what helped lure them is ties to Quinn and Ken Norton Jr., the linebackers coach. So that familiarity really helped. I don't think they have that with a guy like Howard. So he might is he waiting to see, does a really good team need a corner in August?
Yeah.
That's, you know what I mean? So, like, some of these guys are available. It doesn't mean they can go get them. Yes, they can pay them more, but for some of these guys, is it, what are you looking for? A chance, or a chance with a team that you think is going to be really good? And like Gilmore, I think would be the same. Now they have ties to him, so like that gives them maybe that's. And I don't know this. Like, I don't know what their thoughts are on him right now. Is he a guy that they are paying attention to? Is he just waiting to see? I don't know. But yeah, those guys, like, those, you're right though. Those are guys that you could always go get because, I mean, there are a lot of questions at that spot, and you need to get those filled. And if you're going to play a certain way, you're going to need help from the, aggressive up front. You're going to need some help from that secondary with guys who can cover. But I think they use these times to learn about guys, learn about Forbes, learn about St. Jude's, and then reassess what you need. Because the roster, they are far from done at constructing the roster.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of, can you get guys at those spots to help you? That's the key, obviously.
Yeah. All right. Last thing. The latest, I got speed bump of RFK is a senator who is demanding something to satisfy a family of constituents that created the iconic logo that was retired by the team when they changed the name. Do you have any insight into what outcome this senator and that family wants that the team can and would agree to so we can move this process forward?
Well, when he was pressed on that, I know he was on radio show in town on 106.7. Like, he was pressed on that and couldn't really say this is what it would take. What I do know is that even before he came out and said something, whatever his motives are, right? Even before he came out and said something, they had already met with the family. The team had already met with the family.
Right.
And so I don't know they're not returning the logo. This is not my decision. It's not going to happen. So if that's part of what he and they want, it's just not going to happen. So, so I don't know of that then. Now, it sounds, it could well be that they say, listen, they're going to open up whenever they have a new facility, whether it's at the stadium, whether it's at a practice facility in that area, they're going to have a Hall of Fame museum. Certainly they would have a spot in there, and then maybe you honor them at a game or something like that. I don't know if that would be enough for them, but I don't know beyond that what it is that they're supposed to do for them. And it was not this group's decision to take away the logo. It was the whole situation. And, I always have to tell people, this is not my call. I mean, it's amazing that honestly, Bram, it's amazing that sometimes I have to say things like that, but it's true.
It's not my choice.
It is. Yeah. Like, don't complain to me. If you got a problem, write to the team, call the NFL. But I can't help that they're not going to bring the logo back, as iconic as it was. And it doesn't, I'm not, whether people like, it was a good logo,
yeah,
but it's not coming back. I'm sorry. And so I don't know. So, and say that to the senator, like, if this is what they want, then you're not going to have a resolution. And I don't know that. I
have a different guess on it. Again, I'm just speculating, but I actually think that the family knows that it's a valuable piece of IP. And if the team isn't going to use it because for whatever reasons they're not, I think they just want it back, and the team's not going to give it back to them because it is valuable. And that's okay, my guess about what's going on here. Yeah.
And you could be right. And, it's not, I'll be honest, it's not an issue I'm diving deep on because it's just not for ESPN. Like, it's because this is part of the horse race for the building at RFK.
Yeah.
This is not like a national story but if there's no vote or if they vote no on it, that's a story, and I don't know that it's going to get to that. Is this guy just looking, is this grandstanding? Is he trying to really do something? I don't know. But I know that, like, it's with all the issue, it's just not something I'm diving deep on because, I'm not sure exactly what exactly does the family want. I mean, I don't know. And the ironic thing is, like, the one thing I think people would really want is to go back to RFK. And I don't know how this is going to go over, this guy holds it up.
Yeah.
And I don't know that in the end, like, is this just a threat? What else happens? What else? is this guy looking for that he might get
right.
that helps change his mind? And I don't know.
What does the senator get out of this? It's like,
that's what I'm saying.
It's insane.
Right. Well,
why? Some senator from Montana? What?
He's getting a lot of attention for sure. But I don't, and is he trying to poke the NFL for it? I don't know.
I don't know.
And so I don't know what the motivation really is. And I mean, I'm sure he'd say it's just to help this family, but then like, what is it that you really want? I don't know. And what is it what's going to satisfy you but I don't know what more the franchise could or should do.
I agree.
I just, because it's not, again, it wasn't, if you want it to return, if that's part of it, it's just not going to happen.
No, it's not. I mean, that's probably why this got to this point. They probably asked for it back. Since you retired it and we made it, we'd like to have it back. And the team in the NFL knows it's valuable. And so they're not going to do that. And so the return is, well, then do something with it to make money and benefit us. And I don't disagree with that ask. I'm just shocked a senator took that up during an actual committee meeting. Like a logo of a private company. Like, well, how is that the business of the Senate? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And it's hard because, again, if they don't vote on it this year because of this, they're not going back to RFK. Like, I don't think that they're in wait until next year at this time to like, okay, well, let's see what happens next year.
You don't even know what the makeup of the House and Senate is going to be at that point.
Exactly.
The process starts over again.
Exactly. And so, if they don't, and, again, we've all seen threats and things like that don't play out the way that people say they are, because if push comes to shove, they're going to go, a different way, So I don't know what's going to happen. The vote was supposed to be in a few weeks. It sounds like it's on hold. So when they actually vote, but if they don't, again, I don't think you're going to sit there and wait, because I think in that case, they probably end up back in Maryland. But I, so I think, which would not please a lot of people, I think. And, I don't know, whatever. I just think it's interesting what's going on. And, because to me, like, this felt like it was going to pass Congress because there's a ton of support for it, a ton of bipartisan support for this. And, so you felt like to go. And then it's up to the city and the DC council is, can you get this done? Is there money there to get it done or not? And, I always felt like that would be the biggest obstacle, not a senator from Montana.
No.
Where I will be later this summer and looking forward to it.
Oh,
shout out Montana.
All right. John, as always, thank you for all the time. It was a little overtime on you today. I didn't mean to keep you this long, but thank you so much for the time as usual. And I'll see you, in about a week and a half when we do OTAs again.
There you go. Thanks, Bram.